Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. Now, I mentioned earlier in a video this morning that I'd be doing one about Neil Gray, and here it is. Because Neil Gray has just taken on the mantle of Health Secretary, and within days he's finding himself in a little bit of a hole. He's realising it's not as easy as he thought, and that he's got a major problem within his own constituency. For you see, the NHS Board where he is already £112 million in the red. It's got a massive black hole. There's no funding available. He hasn't got a clue what he's doing. And so as the Health Secretary, you would have thought it would behove him to sort out his own problems first. But he hasn't got a clue on how to do this. And so I wouldn't hold your breath. But we'll take a look to see how bad it's going to be, how bad it's going to get, and how awful it is to have a man who is completely out of his depth made Health Secretary when he literally doesn't know a thing about running a large department. He's never had one. He doesn't deal with people. He's not very effective at communications. And it's going to be awful. Plus ça change. Let's have a look. Now, I've got to say, I did mention about the lack of communication. He does have a journalism background. But of course, that's all great and well when you want to tell people things. But that's not the communication problem that Neil Gray has. He's got that arrogance of an SNP minister. And so he won't listen. And he certainly won't listen to experts, because experts will be telling him things he doesn't want to hear. And so he will plough on regardless with what he thinks is right, rather than what is actually right. And I can see now that it will get worse. And not just worse in his constituency in Lanarkshire, but worse everywhere. Because he's never ever had the kind of experience needed to run a department like the NHS, which is just about the largest, department. Health is so big, so wide, so encompassing, and you're dealing with so many different people in so many different places, in so many different fields. It's not like energy where he came from, where it's just tick box exercise. Do I need to do this? Bit of economy, yes, tick that, do that. And, the civil servants do most of it. This requires decision making, and that, of course, is where it's all going to fall down. But let's have a look and see what he's doing. NHS Board in constituency of new Health Secretary Neil Gray faces £112 million funding black hole. The full extent of the NHS Lanarkshire's cuts are contained in an internal presentation, but that's been handed to the paper, the Record in this case. So the Record are reporting this and saying, look, he's minutes into the job and already he has got a major headache and he will have to try and sort it out. Now, what's he going to do? He hasn't got a clue, has he? He literally doesn't know. Will it be cuts? Will he get rid of people? Will he cut services? Will he say we'll close that? Or will he try and fight for more money? But Shona Robertson's made it clear there is no more money. And of course not. They've spent it on foreign embassies. So what's he going to do? Well, he'll probably just do what Michael Matheson did. He'll go to his office. He'll shut the door. He'll lock the door. He'll pull out his iPad and hold his iPad in his left hand while he does something entertaining with his right hand. And he'll do that until he loses the portfolio, because he also is a bit of one of them, isn't he? Anyway, his own health board is facing this big and huge plug and has to cut costs to plug this deficit. The amount the NHS Lanarkshire has to save is the equivalent of 24 days running costs for the struggling board. And the leaked paper states all directors have been asked to consider how a 5 to 6% reduction to their budget could be achieved. I've got an idea. Let's fire all the directors and half the senior managers and a third of all the other managers. There you go. Also, what you can do is stop spending the £8 million a month on spin doctors. And I don't know, maybe hire some real ones. Labour MSP Monica Lennon said the latest SNP Health Secretary is a Lanarkshire MSP who must know what harm this will do to patients and NHS workers in our communities. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know anything. It's not his field. He hasn't got a clue. She said, when you look at the terrible cuts being forced on NHS boards and local councils, it's frightening. Many of my constituents have already been tragically failed, and it's getting worse every week. I think the SNP have come to the conclusion that it is far, far cheaper to let patients die than it is to try to cure them. And so I think that's more or less the way they're doing it. And they're just arbitrarily, well, yeah, he's a bit old, it's what he would have wanted, and let him go. Yeah. I think literally that's where they're getting to now, because they don't have the money to save people. Anyway, Monica Lennon continued, SNP and Green politicians are waving placards and running petitions against cuts, only to nod them through in Parliament. Our communities deserve so much better than this. And she's right. The full extent of the NHS Lanarkshire's cuts are contained in an internal presentation handed to the Daily Record. It claims that very difficult funding situations should be seen against a backdrop of no uplifts to the budget. In other words, Shona Robertson says, tough, there's no more money, we've spent it, and you ain't getting it. And according to the paper, the 112.5 million is the same as 60% of an average acute hospital's annual budget. It's also 75 times the annual costs of nursing and supplies for one ward, or 1.3 times the 3 acute hospitals' annual drug spend. Another way of looking at it is the presentation notes is 1.3 times the entire admin annual staffing costs. So basically, it's money wasted on non-essentials. A lot of it is non-essentials. Some of it is essential. Some admin is essential. Some of the clerical work is essential, of course. But a lot of it isn't. The managerial, you have managers who manage managers. Why? And you have waste left, right and centre. We did the thing yesterday. 50 million in 4 years. 50 million spent just on taxis. And that's not including, like I say, all the spin doctors and all that. And Greater Glasgow Clyde hiring of private investigators. There's waste everywhere. And nobody is controlling it. Because nobody wants to. Nobody cares. You've had 3, possibly 4... health secretaries on the trot who've completely failed at their job, and now you've got a 5th who is not only going to fail, he's not even going to try. That's the sad thing. He's really not going to try. Lennon said the chaotic SNP Green budget will make it impossible for the NHS services to function, and people will die needlessly. Monica, they are dying now. They are already dying. So that will be the legacy of Humza Yousaf's government unless they quickly change course. And after 17 years of SNP mismanagement, NHS Lanarkshire faces a £112 million black hole when resources are urgently needed to fund COVID recovery and reduce life-threatening waiting times. And I will say particularly cancer, but A&E as well. A&E and cancer are the 2 big ones that need to be sorted. The eye-watering deficit at NHS Lanarkshire highlights the scale of how the SNP have mismanaged the health service during these 17 years. And health boards are beyond breaking point, and the effects on suffering patients and dedicated staff will be devastating if they're not given the extra resources they need. Now, I'm not going to go through all that, it's just a breakdown of what they need. But they're forecasting a significant deficit for the coming year, and it's not going to get better, is it? Not anytime soon. There's a quote from the hospital saying, we're trying our best and we will attempt to do something and that. But you're not going to get anything done. That man is incapable. He's a man he's been given this power and he doesn't know how to deal. Now, he'll have civil servants around going, you're going to do this and this and this, and the civil servants will be throwing pieces of paper at him. But ultimately, he's not got a clue. How's he going to raise budgets? How's he going to cut costs? How's he going to manage waste? Who's he going to fire? He won't, and he doesn't have the balls to do it anyway, because he's SNP, smooth down the front. I mean, they talk a good game, but they haven't got the ability, have they? Not one of them. Honestly, if you ran a country like a business, they'd be bankrupt in a week. Anyway, I shall round off and I shall come up. There is one significant piece of truth that will never be told by the SNP, and that is that while they're still in the Union, the NHS in Scotland will not be allowed to fail. If it gets to that point, Westminster will step in. Westminster will give them funding. And the SNP know that, but they'll never admit it. Because they know if they had an independent Scotland and the Scottish NHS failed, they're done. Because Westminster would have no obligation to help them out and wouldn't help them out. And yet they won't tell you that. They daren't tell you that. But we all know it's true. We all know the problem. And if you think appointing a man as ill-suited to the role as Neil Gray, and appointing him not because he's any use, but simply because he's your chum, then you can see that the NHS in Scotland is about to get, and it's unbelievable I can even say this, way worse than it currently is. And you wonder how. But it's going to. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Do please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video, and I'll speak to you later. Bye.